Hello, everyone. Welcome to Making Noise for a Safe and Discrimination-Free Beer Industry. I'm Ruvani de Silva. I am a British Sri Lankan beer writer, currently based in Austin, Texas. Some of my bylines include good beer hunting, fine pair, beer is for everyone, and porch drinking. It's really, really great to be here and to be having this conversation. I am going to be moderating this discussion about what is now a global brew collaboration, which has been recognized by VinePair's Next Wave Awards for 2021 as Collab of the Year, as well as named by Brewbound's 2021 Cause of the Year. Brave Noise launched in July of 2021, a couple of months following the Me Too movement in the beer industry. And it was initiated by brewer Brienne Allen, who we have here today, after she shared her experiences with sexism in the industry on her Instagram account at Rat Magnet and asked her followers if they had experienced sexism, and the outpouring was absolutely huge. She received hundreds of personal stories, which she shared on her Instagram account, which have now sort of gone up to thousands, by women and non-binary individuals and their experiences with sexual harassment, assault, and gender discrimination. So, taking these experiences and actually making them into something positive is Brave Noise. It was inspired by the brave voices who have spoken up and shared their stories. And it was a way for beer-related businesses, breweries and beer-adjacent businesses to take action and be transparent in their policies and values. 257 companies have currently joined the collaboration, including breweries, cideries, and bars, which requires those who participate to publicly post their code of conduct and commit to long-term working for safe and inclusive industry involvement, and to donate the majority of the proceeds from the beer to an organisation that reflects the Brave Noise ethos. Before I introduce the panelists, I just want to let you know, if you have questions, please could you put them in the Ask a Question button at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to them towards the end. Thanks ever so much. We have three people who've all been part of this really, really exciting collaboration. Brienne Allen, who is the Brave Noise co-founder, brewer, former production manager at Notch Brewing, and is now working to open a new brewery called Sacred Profane in Maine this summer. You'll see everyone's social media handles should be coming up in the chat. Ren Navarro, Brave Noise collaborator and founder of Beer Diversity, which is a consulting agency she started in 2018, focused on diversity and inclusion in the craft beer industry. Ren has been a leading voice in the Canada beer and bar industry, advocating for safe and inclusive spaces. She also hosts the podcast Beer Diversity Presents Ren Likes to Talk. And finally, we have Jen Blair, Brave Noise collaborator, Cicerone exam manager, national BJCP Beer Judge, and podcast co-host of False Bottom Girls. Wow, so exciting to have all of you here today. I'm going to kick off with asking Brienne. It's been almost a year since you started sharing stories on your Instagram and igniting a long overdue Me Too movement in craft beer. How have you seen Brave Noise's impact on the industry create conversations and inspire action?
I have actually 4 specific examples of just like noticeable changes and things that have come because of Brave Noise specifically. And my favorite one is just the conversation between employers and their employees and them just working together to create a better space for not only their customers, but them as well. And that's really kind of a taboo subject that we never really talk about. There's always, someone's running the company and you work for them, and that's basically it. So instead of like unions are great and everything, but this has really started that much needed conversation between the employer and the employee working together to create just a better, better like quality life together. Like no one wants a shitty job, right? My second one is I love seeing that customers are now demanding the code of conducts, not only just in beer, but in a lot of products that they buy throughout their lives. And people are being more mindful of where they're spending their money. And that's really important for, protecting people and just sustainability. It's just really amazing to watch this year. Another example of actions that we've seen are just holding offenders accountable. A lot of people, can accuse people of things or, bring stuff up legally and nothing comes of it. So it's just really cool to see things actually changing, people getting fired, companies, really doing what they say they're going to do and protect their employees. And then the last one is just watching companies start being more transparent about their hiring process and creating more like equitable jobs with non-biased hiring and just like really helping to make the beer industry not only diverse, but just like, it's not just a number. They're actually, you can tell people fucking care. And like, that's really cool to watch as well.
Absolutely. It's so fantastic to actually see sort of real positive senses of accountability and visible change happening. Jen, with this collab, it's a chance for breweries to be proactive and to put into place these kind of meaningful accountability policies and resources. How have you seen the community be proactive and develop those resources and initiatives, and even nonprofits to support their staff in the last year?
Yeah, I think that I second what Brienne says is so great to see codes of conduct and see places revisiting, probably their boilerplate or like Google search for code of conduct that was in their handbook. I know I had a lot of conversations with people who said, I would love to be able to participate in Brave Noise, but our code of conduct isn't very good. And I was like, yeah, no one's is. Like that's why we're here. And so view it as an opportunity to show people the work that you've done from this boilerplate, Google search code of conduct into what this new code of conduct looks like show your customers, show your employees, show everyone who has a relationship with you that you really thought about what does this mean, and and put that out there, because it's nobody had a good code of conduct, right? So that's okay. That's a place to start from. And seeing so many breweries and businesses. I know the brewery that I worked at, we had real conversations with not just the leadership, but with the employees. And everybody was asked, here's the code of conduct. Does this look like what we have talked about? Does this look like what you want? Are you proud of this? And, in creating that and putting that out there. And that's, luckily that's not the exception to the rule. There are a ton of places who use this opportunity, like Brienne said, to really engage with their employees and having customers. I have several friends who just started emailing breweries and saying, are you going to brew Brave Noise? And if not, will you put your code of conduct on your website? And I had conversations with people like that, where it's like, look, the point isn't to brew Brave Noise. The point is to have a code of conduct that's somewhere that people understand how you are going to protect them when they're interacting with your brand. And there have been a handful of breweries who, for whatever reason, aren't able to brew Brave Noise, but are like, yeah, absolutely, we're going to get our code of conduct up there. And I think that is so important. And we're doing the work to make normalizing, expecting to see a code of conduct from consumers, from partners, from distributors, festivals, everything. We're all starting to just ask for that and just expect it. And the more that we do that, the more people will understand that this isn't going away, and like a code of conduct is not a bad thing. So let's just develop it. And there have been so many great nonprofits, like Infinite Ingredient. There were a lot of people out there who knew that there was this need, and this acted as a catalyst for them to say, these are what resources are missing within the industry. Something like Infinite Ingredient, like mental health support is missing. And how can we step into that space and provide these resources for people? So there's been so many positive impacts, and a lot of them happen behind the scenes that, it's not always like the flashiest thing. And like, I don't care. I don't want you to post it on social media. I don't care if you post it on social media. I want to be safe. I want to know that your employees are safe. I want to know that your customers are treated equitably when they walk into your business. There's just been so much of that.
That's fantastic. And it's really, really great to see how Brave Noise has acted as a catalyst to give beer and beer adjacent businesses an opportunity to understand how to help, how to get it right, and to have that kind of guidance and that kind of steer. So I think that's something that's really, really crucial. Ren, when it comes to engaging in diversity, equity, and inclusion conversations with breweries, can you share some examples from your work specifically as to what steps need to be taken and how diversity and inclusion should be integrated into just the everyday running of business to sort of normalize it?
Yeah, I think the big piece is that everyone kind of lumps it into these really huge generalizations. So when they talk about diversity, it's immediately, I need this group of people. I need more women. Mars needs more women. Or it's, we need Black people or we need brown people. And it's just kind of these silos of people. So the big conversation I have is like, let's redefine it for what's in your neighborhood. You can't wish for Black people to suddenly appear if that's not what your community is. And, people always say, oh, but we're super white here. And it's like, yeah, but do you have anyone, who has disabilities and disabilities, that's like visible and invisible. So we're talking mental health, we're talking neurodivergence, we're talking all of these other pieces and getting people to understand that it's not just color or sexual orientation or, gender or non-gender. It has to be so much more. So it's who are you talking to? Like, does your area skew really young? In Canada, the drinking age starts at 18, depending on where you are, at 19. So States, we're talking 21 and up. But who are you marketing to? Who is working in your space? Are you ignoring people who are 44 and up? It's these things where it's just like all of this is in front of you, and I think that diversity work is so easy. We've made it hard because we want to find the white elephant and say like, look what we got, and it's like, these people are all here. It's just understanding who you need to talk to and also encouraging breweries to stop using the word targeted. Like we target. No, you market to people. You invite people in. You create a community. I always say Black people don't like using the word target. I don't want to be targeted. Thank you very much. And I think that having people redefine it and just don't use the word diversity. Let's use underrepresented people within your community because it is a fluid statement that will always change. Like today, it could be that it is, the underrepresented person in your area is a white trans man. And in 5 years, it could be a white straight guy. Like, who knows, right? And so I think that opening it up and not making it so rock solid is how we actually work to make these changes and how we try and do something that's different. And don't be afraid of messing it up. If you're in beer or in wine or cider, you've dumped things, right? You've messed it up and you've dumped it back. And you don't say, screw it, I'm going home and I'm never doing it again. So let's stop doing that with these initiatives. And I think that reminding people like both Jen and Brienne have said that the Brave Noise movement, we're just asking you to put stuff in writing. Like this is, these are your companies and your businesses. This is not a hobby. If you make money and you pay taxes and you have people who show up in your building randomly every day, guess what? It's a business. And it means that you have to put stuff in writing. I mean, hell, every brewer even if you made that batch of beer 1,000 times, you still had it in writing. Just put your code of conduct in writing, put your value statements in writing, put these things that you can always refer back to, because there's nothing worse than someone saying, well, they know that we have a zero tolerance policy. What if you win the lottery and you don't come back? No one knows that. It's all in your stupid head. Put it on a piece of paper. I think that that's what we have to remember. That's how we're going to make change. Just write that shit down.
Exactly. And it's true that it is so much more normalized in other industries. Employers are expected to have those kinds of codes of conduct, to have HR policies, to have this stuff very, very publicly and openly stated. So bringing that into beer, it shouldn't, like you said, it shouldn't be as complicated as people are making it. And it's, part of what Brave Noise is doing is really demonstrating that this is normal. This should be normal. Brienne, with Brave Noise, you're asking breweries to be transparent in this way that so many other industries are already, and really sharing their values publicly so that both staff and customers are aware of what their policies are. How does this one step create accountability for businesses, and what resources are available for breweries to join the collab to develop these guidelines that you guys have come up with?
Well, so kind of piggybacking off of what Ren just mentioned, having that stuff in writing, having your values public, it shows accountability to a point where you're kind of asking to be held accountable. And I can give like a great example. There, like some bars around here will, be serving tons of different brave noises all the time and having these diversity or like celebrating Women's Day and all this shit. And then, but they don't have a code of conduct, right? And then the next day they'll be serving like Hill Farmstead or like Tired Hands or something. And you're like, okay, like I know that you're trying to support us by like serving brave noise and everything, but because you don't have a code of conduct, like you can do whatever you want. But if they had one, we could easily, show them here on your code of conduct is where you fucked up. Yeah. And like now you need to fix it. But if you don't have a code of conduct, you can literally just skate by pretending that you're an ally when you really fucking aren't. And it's really sad to me, like when people do that and like go behind our backs and just pretend to support other people. And I really think that the code of conduct and values really solidifies like, hey, I'm here for you, or I'm here for these things that I believe in. And that's the end all be all. And you can see it right here. So if I'm not doing that, like, please let us know, because these are clearly the most important things to us. And I feel like if a company doesn't have values, they probably shouldn't have gotten a license to be brewing in the first place. Anyways, so the resources that are available. So on the Brave Noise website, we have our partners, HR Uprise. They've created a whole guide for breweries on how to write one. And I firsthand, like at Notch, we were like, why don't we have one of these? And then I went to write it and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So even we had, a hard time figuring that out. So it's been really helpful that HR Uprise like put the whole guide together. They have people standing by to help breweries. And it's there to, we're not like saying, oh, if you don't have a code of conduct or you don't know how to do it, like you're an idiot. It's basically there to be like, let's all learn how to do this together, because it's weird it took this long to even get here. So it's really just the whole website is designed to help everyone figure it out together. And it's still a work in progress,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so important to have these specific tools, as you said, to help people, to steer them, to guide them, and also to push back against performative allyship, which nobody really wants and is really, really counterproductive. So you'll see all the info you need here. The links are in the chat for anyone who needs them. And I'm going to move on a little bit. Ren, when it comes to inclusivity, how can members of the beer community be better allies to people of color, whether they work in a brewery, whether they're a customer, just from all perspectives, really? How does sort of genuine allyship make itself visible in that way?
I think the first step is to not call yourself an ally. I think that we kind of use it as a crutch. Right? If I helped and I did something good, then I'm an ally. And it's like, no. So the first thing is educate yourself. If you want to learn about something, don't go to the group of people who are underrepresented or marginalized to say, like, I could have looked this up on the Google machine, but I will ask you. Show that you're putting in an effort, because that is how we make strides. That's how most of us have gotten to some form of adulthood, is that you've tried. And you can say to someone like, hey, do you have time for me to run this past you? If you are doing that, pay the person you're asking, pay them for their time. I think that, a lot of the work that Brave Noise is doing and all the partners, pay all of us, pay everyone for their time. I mean, Ash is probably the hardest working woman right now, who's probably getting paid pennies on the dollar for what she's putting out. I think that it is incredibly important that if you want something to help your business, that is about making money. And it means that whoever you get that knowledge from, or the info from, or the support from, you have to pay them. And if you do it right, someone may bestow the title of ally on you. Understand that it's not permanent. You'll make a mistake, you'll lose the title. Just work harder for it, but figure out what went wrong, right? So like I said before, everyone's dumped batches of beer and stuff, but you figured out what happened and you went back and did it. And if we looked at these kind of problems, like the whole Brave Noise movement, and and the fact that we need HR Uprise and we need the Not Me app, like if we looked at these things and approached it the way that we approach the industry in terms of the debate over bottles or cans or the newest piece of equipment, like you wouldn't be talking to any of us right now. Like this wouldn't be a thing. And so if we're going to talk about inclusion and we're going to talk about allyship and making changes, like you have to look at this like it's a business. It's, the three of us on this call are just trying to make this a less shit industry. We've been in it for a really long time. We all really love it. And there are days where I'm like, I don't know why I love it. I feel like Charlie Brown and Lucy's holding the football. And I know every time I go to kick it, I'm landing on my ass, but I try the next day. I want people who are listening to this and who are on this to understand that it's not just the three of us. And it's like, I mean, hell, you do so much, right? Like, so the four of us are doing all these things to make these changes. Don't leave it to us. We're not getting it all right. We're really trying. If you want to be an ally, it means that you got to get dirty with us. And you got to get your hands dirty and you got to get in there. And if you have a piece of information that we don't have, pass it on. Right? Share the info, share the education, because what we learn, we're giving out and we're putting it out there. And that's how we're going to make these real strides. And that's how we're going to get to this some basic level of inclusion and allyship, whatever that means these days. But yeah, just come get dirty and sweaty with us for like a minute or two.
I think that your analogy about brewing is really, really relevant, because I think a lot of people do step back because they are afraid of getting it wrong and they think it's easier just not to even try in the first place. Whereas, as you pointed out correctly, they wouldn't do that if it was a beer. They go back and try again. So I think being really transparent and saying, yeah, it's okay to get it wrong as long as you're trying, as long as you're educating yourself, is such an important message. And it's something that we need to keep spreading to stop people being afraid of just wanting to get involved, but just feeling awkward and uncomfortable. And that's why these conversations are so important. Brienne, by joining the Brave Noise K-Lab, breweries have to donate a majority of the proceeds of the beer to an organisation that is reflective of your values as Brave Noise. Can you share how much has been donated to organisations so far, and talk a little about how that's going?
Yeah, so this is one of those things that I would say Ash knows all about this. But she made me a list of all the stuff, like updated what's going on since we have extended the deadline. I don't even think there is a deadline anymore. It's just kind of an ongoing thing, which is awesome. So all of our specs are pretty much ever evolving. So she actually told me today that we've raised, all of us collectively in the world have raised over $100,000 for organizations that have reflected our mission. And so each brewery got to pick who they wanted to donate to, and they had to put it on the label. And that's another, and their code of conduct. And so that's another way to hold people accountable. Like, hey, you said you were going to donate to this. It says it on the beer, like right here. Did you do that? And like, where did it go? What have you done? How much should you give? Whereas like collaborations in the past, you just assume that they've donated something from it, but there's no way to tell where it went if they didn't make like an announcement or whatever. So I just thought this was like a really cool part of the collaboration where you could literally see all the information and really not have to go looking for it too hard. So some of the nonprofits that people have been donating to includes like all the merch fundraisers that we've been doing, and like the stickers and anything from our raw material ingredient resources and stuff like that. They're going to different places like Safe Bar Network, Hollaback, RAIN, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, Infinite Ingredient that Jen talked about a little bit, Beer Culture, and then another round, another rally, and Breaking Silence. And all of those, all of those websites and links and just what is wrong with me? Just the descriptions of what each one of them do are on the website and probably going to be linked in after this as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see all of this. There are links in the chat for everyone. You've also been fundraising separately through the Anti-Sexist, Anti-Racist, Pro-Equality Beer Club merch fundraiser. I mean, that's such a brilliant initiative. Are those funds going in the same places? And yeah, how have you managed to get that to take off so successfully?
Yeah,
I'm wearing mine right now, but it's a bit hot here in Texas for a hoodie. Sorry.
Yeah, so Beer Night in San Diego, which is a podcast and beer blog in San Diego, they started the shirt to raise money for me initially because we all thought I was going to get like sued to high heavens. And so we just started raising money just in case because, I mean, people are really passionate about what was going on. And it just became, you know, I see the shirts everywhere in the wild now. I think we've sold over, I would say 5,000 shirts. So yeah, I could go out grocery shopping like in any state right now and see people wearing them. And I'm just like, oh, that's so cool. Has my name on it. But the message is better. But yeah, people love wearing, you know, what they believe, you know, like right on their chests, on their backs. They want people to know exactly what they stand for, whether it's, you know, something that we don't agree with or that we do. So you can either bond over it or be like, fuck you. But anyway, so yeah, all the money from that is being spread around to a couple different places, specifically the Bevolution Brave Voices Fund that Ash started. And Jen, were you part of that as well? Mm-hmm. And then Another Rally, which is a fund to support female and non-binary survivors of sexual harassment and discrimination and help them leave toxic workplaces and move forward with the necessary resources. So that's more of like, I work in this really terrible place but I can't afford to quit my job because I'm living paycheck to paycheck or what have you. So that's kind of like a grant fund that is like, here's some buffer money. We're going to help you find a new job. Just get the hell out of there. Like stop waiting. Let's just move on. And then the majority of the money, we're going to actually announce a grant program that we're launching next month with Beer Culture for Black, female, and non-binary entrepreneurs in brewing. So that'll be a $30,000 scholarship grant that'll go towards people. I believe it's going to be once a year. So we'll keep selling these shirts so we can keep creating this grant. And that's just for, like I said, women to get into the industry via beer culture by starting their own businesses specifically.
That's amazing. That's a sort of so many different avenues of hope and possibility and opportunity are coming out of this money. It's so exciting and just brilliant. Jen, with your involvement with the homebrewing community, can you share how homebrewers can get involved with Brave Noise and fundraise?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been homebrewing can be a very frustrating kind of community to be a part of sometimes, but I've been really floored by how many people have responded and have said, how do I get involved? How can I do this? Brewing Brave Noise as part of like their monthly group brews, or we had one of my friends who had brewed Brave Noise as a home brewer actually got the opportunity to brew it with a commercial brewery in Charlotte. And one of the things that the owner said when she invited him was, why don't you bring 3 of your guy friends with you and you can all brew Brave Noise together? And like, he didn't have a problem at all finding people who were just like, this is awesome. I can't wait to be a part of this. So that's really heartwarming to hear. And we'll have homebrewers who have reached out who've said, hey, we created a code of conduct for our homebrew club. We didn't have one before. And I spoke to a friend, actually the current president of my former homebrew club, and there is a festival with a company that has been problematic in the past that is coming into town, and the homebrew club wanted to partner with them. And he was like, what do I do here? Like, how do I have this conversation with our club members who don't understand why we should be talking about this? And so one of the things that they developed also, or they're in the middle of developing, is their own code of conduct, and also what what are the processes we're going to put in place when we get approached by something like this festival, asking us to volunteer, asking us to participate in some way. And, it's the same thing. We're going to ask to see their code of conduct. We're going to ask these kinds of questions because it should mean something. If our homebrew club is going to participate with you, you need to tell us how we're going to be safe, how we're all going to create this equitable, safe environment. So that the homebrew recipe is available for any homebrewer who would like to brew it on the Brave Noise Beer website. There is all grain and extract, both available for our homebrewers. And I think I saw Michelle had shared in the chat. She had this super fantastic fundraiser, Michelle Wonder, fundraiser that she did with her homebrew club around Black is Beautiful, and having homebrewers brew that recipe, and then not selling, but people would donate money to them for these like mixed 6-packs that these different homebrewers had brewed of their version of Black is Beautiful. And then that money was given to a nonprofit, and she graciously gave us that same toolkit to be able to use for Brave Noise. So that information is also available on the WCFA website, and I believe it's also available on Brave Noise Beer, but if I'm incorrect, I'll let Michelle correct me in the chat. So yeah, there's a ton of ways for homebrewers to be able to get involved with it. And, again, as a homebrewer, as a consumer, ask your breweries for codes of conduct. If you get asked to volunteer at a festival as a homebrewer, I know all the time festivals are like, you wish you could be a professional brewer. Why don't you come pour their beer in the hot sun all afternoon? If you're getting asked to volunteer, if you're getting asked to judge, ask for that code of conduct. Normalize it. Normalize asking and expecting to receive that code of conduct.
It's really great to see that this is really moving forward within the homebrew community, because it is such an important part of the beer community overall. And I think that's it's really, really crucial to have the homebrew community on board with something like this. And it's great to know that that these groups are really taking it seriously in the same way that professional breweries are. So that's another really, really strong positive. As a sort of very, very basic home brewer, it's great to know that I could go to a homebrew club and be able to ask them that, do you have a code of conduct, and know that this is becoming a more normal thing. So that's fantastic. Ren, of the 257 breweries which have joined the collab so far around the globe, we're bringing in countries like way, way beyond the US, the UK, New Zealand, Australia, Canada. 57 of those breweries are in Canada. Obviously, you've been really at the forefront of pushing that forward. How have you seen issues being addressed specifically in Canada, and what would you like to see more of?
I would like to see more Canadian breweries sign up, frankly. Canada has 1,200 breweries, and so 57 is a very low number. And I think that the big fear is that, you have to be transparent, and you have to put your feelings down on paper and your promises. And accountability is really hard. So what I would like to see is that accountability not be so scary. Again, we are accountable to the product that we put out. We're accountable to the interactions that people have in the tap room. So I don't understand why asking for, your code of conduct or your values in writing is that scary, daunting thing. Even outside of the 57 breweries that participated, there were very few who publicly said that they were doing a revamp of their code of conduct or any of those things. I love Canada, but goddamn are we real lazy when it comes to these things. And I think that what I would love to see is that there be more outspoken moments and breweries that want to talk about it again. Some of those breweries that have done it once are actually looking at rebrewing in order to keep the conversation going. And kudos to them, but they shouldn't have to do it. It should be that there are new breweries stepping in to say, hey, we actually did a new code of conduct. And so what I would love to see is that we just talk about it and not just talk about it, but have action. There are a lot of committees over here. There's a hell of a lot of committees. And there's a lot of people sitting in rooms just talking about things, and they are showing absolutely nothing for it. And if every brewery did a code of conduct and or a value statement, it would be so different. And instead, this is like pulling teeth. And I think that, it's great that we have the, 200 plus breweries participating. But when you look at Black is Beautiful and you see that there were thousands or, 1,500 or whatever it was because there was no accountability for that. You just brewed it. You said Black people were really cool for like 6 months and you forgot about it. And it, and I think it was a great, and not knocking it, I think it was a great initiative. However, it showed how performative we can all be. And now what we're asking is that you can't be performative with this, because we're going to watch you and other people are going to watch you and your fans are going to watch you and people who want to come and drink your beer are going to ask about it. And that's a scary, scary thing. But if you can have exploding cans of fruited sours and people still come back, you can have a code of conduct. I don't get it, and I think that it's like Jen said, and like Brienne said, like it's not easy to write a code of conduct, but there are tools to help you do it. And I think that we have to get past this whole, like, I don't have time to do it. But then the people who say that they don't have time to write the code of conduct and the value statements then wonder why there aren't underrepresented people showing up in their tap rooms. Or, why aren't there more women at this event? Because we don't know that we're going to be safe. Because we haven't written anything down to say we're going to try real hard to keep you safe. And people have to get past this mindset of, well, but everyone knows I'm a nice guy. Nice guys do terrible things.
Exactly. And we keep coming back to this issue of performative diversity and the fact that what makes Brave Noise unique and really, really forward, progressive, moving is the fact that you are asking for real accountability and actual proof that that this is more than lip service. This is more than just an empty gesture, which, not to, again, as you said, discredit other collaboration brews, but it's a lot easier to get on board with something when you don't have to do work. And so often we find the people who say they don't have time to do the work are the people who have plenty of time to bitch on social media about being asked to do the work. And this is something that we all know. And moving forward a little bit, to talk more about sort of genuine accountability as we're heading into festival season. Brienne, there have been numerous stories that you shared on your Instagram about women and non-binary people experiencing harassment at beer festivals and events. I know you've been working with Ash Elliott, for the audience, of Women of the Beer Evolution, on how festivals and events can become safer spaces so that these incidents aren't occurring. How can the community do their part? What should they look for when they're attending an event? How can people help?
So Ash has done a lot of work on putting together a 4-part series about festival safety with Hugging the Bar, and which we'll have the link on here too. And it's really interesting read. She's all about the festival safety. I'm like anti-festivals, so personally, I don't, even if they have a code of conduct and a reporting app service, which all of them have kind of been doing recently, I don't feel safe at festivals, even if they have that shit. Festivals are weird. We're all dumb, drunk idiots walking around just looking to get in trouble. I mean, look at us. That's what the brewing industry is like made of. So like, I personally am not going to any festivals, no matter what you do. But it has been really cool to hear people that have been going to festivals that have the QR codes on their name tags. They have a tent and it says the code of conduct. It says what to do if something happens. It has the Not Me reporting app, which is free. It's awesome. And they can even customize the app interface for whatever event you're doing. If you just want it for that one day, if you want it for your company, or if you're just a random person that wants to report something and you need advice on what to do. So it's really cool seeing how many festivals have adopted that, just to show like, hey, if anything happens, we're going to take care of it. But at the same time, I don't feel like the people hosting festivals are really encouraging the safety of those reports yet. So like, even I've talked to some women the past week and they're like getting reports about them harassing men. And they're like, what is going on? Like that didn't. So I feel like it's kind of getting abused as well, which of course, find a way to abuse something to stop abusers. Like we'll find a way. But yeah, this is Ash's project. She's very into helping the festival stuff, but yeah, I don't know. There's so many layers to it. Like, who are you inviting? Are you inviting people that have codes of conduct? Are you inviting people that have been accused of misconduct? If they were, why the fuck would you invite them here? If they did it to someone once, they're gonna do it to them again. Ridiculous. Like, just the idiocy of some people blows my mind. But yeah, so there's just so many things that go into festivals, and I honestly don't see the point of festivals in general, but that's just me.
Well, it is obviously disheartening to see that these resources are unfortunately being misused, and to consider how far we still have to go before festivals are going to be like true, honest, safe spaces. It is really, really great to see the initiatives that are going forward. There's info and links in the chat for anyone who wants to download the Not Me app and find out more about the Women of the Beer Evolution and Hugging the Bar Festival series. You can check that out over there. Ren, to just carry this one on a little bit, with festivals, on-site safety procedures and resources, I mean, they should be part of the building blocks for any festival or beer event. But when a festival is being conceived, hiring staff, bringing in partners, it can hugely impact whether or not this event is genuinely welcoming to women, non-binary individuals, people of color, and the LGBTQI plus community. How can event organizers create more inclusive and welcoming environments?
I think that, you've said on paper, right? So as you're organizing these events, and I'm with Brienne, I try not to go to festivals, but I'm also terrified of large crowds. But I think that even if you're doing an in-house beer festival, right? Beer festival, we're pouring lagers for 6 hours with a bunch of our friends from different breweries. In writing, what are we expecting? It's, I have a corporate brain. I spent way too many years in corporate lives, and we would work an idea to death before it even saw the a peak of light. We need to start doing that with these events, and we need to sit down. I don't care if you've done this festival like 20 years running. 20 years ago versus now are two very different times. Go back and rework it. Figure out, if we're doing security, are we using police? Because marginalized people aren't going to be cool with that. Like, you really have to start breaking it down and saying, are the people I'm bringing in to protect going to trigger someone? Are they going to make them feel immediately unsafe? Because sometimes the answer is yes. Do your homework. If you're bringing in security, do they have a code of conduct? Is it accessible? Because it's one thing to have a code of conduct, but then no one can find it. Has it been updated? Is that code of conduct from 1994? Because 94 was a way different time. And I think that these are extra pieces of work that people don't look at, right? Because I don't have time. I got to get the jockey boxes cleaned. I got to get my volunteers in place. But if none of that works because no one feels safe, like what's the point? And so I think that it's really sit down and figure out, what do I want to get out of this? Like, obviously money, because it was capitalism all along. However, you want it to be that Brienne finally breaks her streak and she goes to this festival and everything is in place and it goes without a hitch. And she walks into the back and says, I want to see your paperwork. I want to see your code of conduct. I want to see this. And you're like, here it is. If something goes wrong, here's the plan for that. We've signed up for the Not Me app. We've got this. Everyone went through training, because don't just randomly bring in a bunch of people who are like, I watched a video once and now I can handle these things. Full training. Like, full explanations. I can tell you who the trainer was. I can tell you what the company was. I can tell you all of these things. Oh, and by the way, the beer was really great and everyone had a fun time. But you have to have these pieces in the back. Those are the administrative pieces that we all hate doing because paperwork sucks. But the paperwork is how you show you are making the efforts to try and have a semblance of safety. And it is not a nebulous concept of safety. It is, if a woman gets separated from her group of friends and she is super drunk, she is found in one piece, still sipping her drink, having the best time of her life because no one fucked with her. That's it. That's what we got to do.
I mean, that's the sort of the ideal goal, isn't it? That something like that can happen and you'll still be safe, you'll feel safe, you're in a safe place. I mean, that's really what we're all working towards here. And I think that having, as you said, having procedures that are up to date, that are visible, that are easy to find, that are transparent, that are proving that that's what you're moving towards, is really, really the answer to that. I'm going to move over to some of the questions that we've received. I think that might actually answer the first one, which was what should enforcement of a code of conduct look like? And I think with what you just said, Ren, you have answered that, because that is getting it right. When you are that safe that you can be separated from your friends, you can be drunk and nothing bad is happening to you. But in a sort of broader sense, if someone were to see something that compromises or contradicts a code of conduct, what should they do, particularly if it doesn't involve them personally or their own friends? I mean, what would you advise people to do if they see something that is breaking a code of conduct?
I mean, that's the see something, say something. And we have to also understand, like, breweries that are like, but we don't have HR. Well, you have HR Repres and you have all these other groups. Get an external third party group, HR, that's needed. And I think that if you see something like, I don't want to get involved, it's none of my business. Picture your best friend in that scenario. Picture someone who you really love in that scenario. Would you just leave it? No, you wouldn't. You'd be all over it in a heartbeat. Get yourself into that mentality, because if you walk away from a situation, you go to bed, you are a terrible human. I don't know how you sleep, right? And the thing is, we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Get in there.
I think that is exactly it. We should treat and be treating everyone as if they were our friends, as if we did know them. And I hope that answers. Sorry, I can't see whose question it was now. But I hope that answers that particular question. The next one I've got here is, as the only BIPOC and queer human working at my brewery, what insight can you lend me for encouraging my brewery to do better, make codes of conduct, and encourage other breweries in the community to do the same? I may face this very visible pushback and hopefully not retaliation, but it feels like I might be on my own. Just looking for any advice on ways to make these moves without burning out, and how to find a community who will help. So, Brienne, do you want to kick off that one?
I mean, the way that we all got people to start, getting into this is just asking questions. We're just like, do you have a code of conduct? Why not? And like, what are your values? What do you believe in? And then, I mean, even just having that conversation, you can figure out your values align with that company or not. And even having like the customers also be welcomed to ask those questions as well is really powerful, because then it kind of takes the burden off of you. And I really don't think, like Ren talked about before, underrepresented groups, it's not up to them to make sure we're all like doing the right things. I mean, we're all still learning, and it's really fucking hard. But it's real. The outcomes are really fucking great. And yeah, I would just encourage like everyone to ask them questions and ask them what their values are. It takes the pressure off of you having to be the only one. And they also shouldn't be offended when you're asking them their values. I think that's an endearing question. Like, wow, you really care? Like, do you have time? You want to hear what I fucking care about? Sweet. Like, everyone loves talking about themselves. They shouldn't be mad that you're asking them what they believe in.
Absolutely. Ren, Jen, would either of you like to add anything to that?
I mean, I can add a brief, anecdote that happened with me when I was with New Realm, and when, Brienne had asked the question, I emailed the leadership and said, what are you doing to protect me? What are you doing to protect the other women in the company? What are we asking our distributors these questions? And part of that also is because I know that, my position within the company was safe. So I could also use that space to say, what are you doing for everybody else? Not just me. What are you doing for the people working in the back of the house? Because it was much more riskier for them to ask a question like that. It was easier for me. And, the response was, well, why don't you form a committee of women and you can tell us what we can do better? And I said, okay, but what are you doing? And you've all known that this has been going on for a week. You said that you knew. What are the conversations you've been having about how to make your employees feel safe? And there was never an answer for that. That wasn't the response that I wanted, but I got a response and I could use that information to make my next decisions. And it is scary. And I completely acknowledge that I'm part of a dual income household. Like, it wasn't comfortable for me to not have a job, but it didn't financially ruin us. That was something that I could do. And I understand there's a lot of people out there who are not in that position, but it's still worth saying, what are you doing to protect me? And if your company is like, how dare you, then, then you have your answer.
Big
And then you can decide, you can decide how to move forward from there. And, I found such a great community of people who supported me, and now I can provide them support. So just speaking up about it also, you will be surprised by how many people rise up to support you.
I have a good example of that too. So I remember at a company I worked at, we had a sexual harassment training seminar, and of course everyone's like, oh no, it's boring, but so everyone had to do it. We're all sitting there and they're like, what do you do? There's a quiz at the end. What do you do if blah 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 says blah 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 or touches this person, and everyone's looking around like, that happens here all the time. And we're watching the training, and then at the end of it, we all look at the owner and we're like, so wait, this happens all the time. This is clearly not okay because they just told us it wasn't. And they're telling us to report it. Who can we report it to? Is it you? What are you going to do about it? Because then people started being like, that happens to me every day. And then the owner was like, oh my God, I had no idea. And then they were kind of forced to get a human resource department because all of a sudden they were just like, I don't know how to handle this information. So I think asking for training just to open people's eyes for situations that they may not even know are wrong. Some people, like to hug, and some people don't. So it's nice to have training at companies to just kind of get everyone aware on the same page. And I think that's not too much to ask for.
Absolutely. No, that's hopefully that's a whole swathe of different tactics and advice that would hopefully help you navigate what is obviously going to be a challenging situation, but you shouldn't have to feel that you are without allies and without resources. And that's obviously one of the things that that's most important about this project. We have another question, which is, do you have any examples of companies that were held accountable and made the necessary changes? I don't know who wants to kick off with that. Anyone who's got one?
So Parallel 49, which is in Vancouver, BC, in Canada, got called out a couple of years ago for some stuff, and they were working on it very quietly in the background, but not being transparent. And so they brought me in to help them work on things. And I've been with the company now for just over 2 years. And they're basically like, you're never leaving us because we know we'll never hit that finish line because there is no such thing as a finish line. And so when they did Brave Noise, there was kind of a small section of people who were still like, how can you participate in this after all the terrible things you've done? And they were actually able to say, we've created this updated code of conduct. We've created this value statement. Here are the things that we're doing. They actually let someone go based on them breaking the value statement. And it was real, and talking to those in leadership, they were like, it sucked because it was someone who had worked here for a really long time, but none of us had a single doubt that it was the thing we had to do because those values told us this is what you have to follow. And if you cannot do it, you cannot be here. And it was just so wonderful to see it. I mean, there's still missteps. We're still working through things, but because no one's going to get it perfect. But they went from not saying anything publicly to being like, here's an update. Here's what we're doing. Here's why we did Brave Noise. And not just saying we did it and here's like a quick post. It was like, there there's multiple different like pieces to it that they continue to talk about, and to this day they still talk about. And that's the thing, right? So if you do Brave Noise, you don't just get to say like, yay me, I did it, I have a code of conduct, I have a value statement. You have to keep talking about it, and you have to keep putting it in spots, because that's how this works to make change throughout the industry. And so I'm, obviously kind of biased at this point, but I'm really proud of the work that brewery has put in and continues to put in, because if it weren't for Brave Noise saying, here is why that value statement that you just created is so incredibly important. Like, I don't know if they would have fired that person because they had nothing to reference. And suddenly they were like, oh shit, like here it is, it's on the cans, it's on the website, it's on these spots. If we don't do it, the public will hold us accountable and say, you created this thing and then you didn't do it. And when they did it, they explained to the company why this was important and how it will continue to be important. And I think that's what's going to help.
I think that's so encouraging to see that kind of, genuine transparency, genuine dialogue, and that's really, really what we all want to see more of. I'm going to do one more question very quickly, and then we're going to wrap up because we are running out of time. So in the homebrew scene, I've often run up against this attitude of this is ours and our community, and if you want to be part of it, you just have to deal with things because nobody asked you to be here anyway, and we like it the way it is. This can make it very hard to find community in the homebrewing scene. How do you approach this? Is it just a matter of finding a way to build your own community? Jen, do you want to kick off with that, please?
Sure. I feel this in my bones. I've been at homebrew conferences where I've had, people ignore me, look through me, talk over me, literally walk into me because I didn't move out of their way, like step on me. So I feel this. I remember at one of my very first homebrew club meetings I went to, I was, in the portion of the meeting where we're sharing beers, and this guy said, "Did you brew this all by yourself?" And, it was just like, yeah, even with my lady brain, I managed to do this, and didn't menstruate all over it. Isn't that amazing? And, it's been a while since I've been a part of a homebrew club because of that, because I don't feel like having that fight again. I don't feel like having to walk into the room and prove to everyone there that I know what I'm talking about. So I don't have a good answer for that because the homebrew community needs so much work. And I think events like this to bring visibility to other women within the homebrew community are so important because we're going to have to do it ourselves. We are going to have to build our own community, and we're going to have to find those people, within, like I said, my friend who's brewed Brave Noise several times, he's a huge ally, and he has been talking to breweries. Where's your code of conduct? Doing all of this, finding those people who see that there's an issue and can be the people in the room to say, don't talk to her that way. That's huge. But yeah, there's a lot of wayward women homebrewers out there because clubs can be pretty awful. So I would say if you are a home brewer, if you're in a homebrew club, which I understand that this isn't quite the question, but just flipping the scope, having meetings at people's houses, that's kind of like what Ren said, if you have police as security, I'm not going to go to some random person's house with a bunch of old dudes I don't know. I'm not there. There's just things like that, approach it as, is my homebrew club being welcoming, not if you have one Black person show up to your meeting and everybody's like, hi, how are you? That's, you don't want to tokenize that person either, which I've seen happen. Yeah. So, as a homebrew club, I would highly encourage you to take a really critical eye to how are we treating people. And you know what? There are a lot of homebrewers out there who don't care. They don't want you there. They don't want you in that space. That's not your space. This is something I would charge everyone with here who is a homebrewer who feels the same way. Let's create our own community. Let's figure out what that looks like for us, because the current framework is not working for us. And we don't need to keep fighting within that framework if the answer is always going to be, this is not enough. We don't want you here.
Well, that's very, very much, I think, what I feel, and certainly what it sounds like we have to do, because if people aren't going to make us welcome, if they're not going to let us in, then building our own community. I mean, that's the answer, and I can see that that's very much reflected in what everyone's saying in the chat as well. Apparently, we do have time to answer the final question, which is great, because I was just about to wrap us up. Which is, how can underrepresented people get around the pay-to-play system of education within the beer industry? And more specifically, do you think authentic education can break through the paywalls required to speak at or attend national conferences such as CBC, MBAA, ASBC? Ren, do you want to kick off with that?
As I'm like making missing faces in the corner. I think that the problem with conferences, she says, as she's attending a conference next week, is that there is an assumption that people have cash kind of, just waiting, like mountains of cash to go. I think that there should be sponsorship. I think that there should be some kind of scholarship created, because I'm going to go to this conference and I'm going to be a handful, part of the handful of underrepresented people in the industry. And I'm going to go to a million seminars where they talk about how we get more people who look like me into brewing. It's what happens every time I go to a conference. And it's like, well, we can't go because it's expensive. I'm very thankful that I get sponsorship and people are getting me to go. Also, pay your speakers, please. I'd like to get paid one day. It'd be really cool to go to like a big conference and not be like, I paid to be here. And I'm going to give you $1 million idea. But I think that the issue is that we say that we're not gatekeepers, but with a conference price, if there's a big price tag on it, you have become a gatekeeper. And the socioeconomics of diversity do keep a lot of people out, regardless of the color of your skin. If, we're talking those who are in the LGBTQ plus community, we're talking, like just anyone who's basically not a straight white guy. Sorry, most of the ways. But conferences are expensive. And I get that it has to be charged. Start putting aside a few to say that, this brewery is in Harlem and there is a group of Black folks really trying to make a change, or they're doing these things, or, out in Ontario, we've got a brewery that's owned by 3 Asian guys who, like, we never even talk about the Asian experience, right? East or West or, whatever Asian. We don't even talk about that experience in beer because we just don't. So it's like, why are they not invited to come to the table and bring their experience, pay for them? Like, and it's,
I'm just going to interject there and say that as part of the Chicago Brewseum Beer Summit last year, I hosted the first ever all South Asian beer panel because for exactly that reason. I was like, yeah, where are we? Where are the South Asians? Why are we not here? Why are we not talking about what we're doing in beer? Because we are here. We are doing stuff. We are writing, we are brewing, we are beer advocates, we are part of the beer community. So I very, very much just, wanted to highlight that you are absolutely on point there.
I'm thankful, not at all, but I'm thankful for virtual conferences because this is the way that everyone gets to attend. But if it's in person, it is so incredibly cost prohibitive that it is almost impossible to get someone, I know the MBAA conference, I think it's like $1,000 to attend. I don't have $1,000 American burning a hole in my little pocket. So how do you get people there, even if it's a subsidy? And I think that's what we need to do. We need to sit down and really take a look at we're having these wish list meetings, and these people who can help us are not here because they can't get in the building.
Absolutely. Jen, Brienne, would either of you like to add anything to that?
Sure. I would say the other part of that, and this is still a financial thing, is to go to a conference, more than likely you need a job that gives you paid time off, right? You're going to take vacation days. You're going to have a support system at home that's taking care of everything for you while you're gone. And on top of the conference fees, you have to get there. You have to pay for your hotel. And who traditionally is going to be able to afford that? So I do highly encourage people to start those conversations with places like the Brewers Association. I understand why when they were starting the conferences, they weren't paying travel costs, they weren't paying their speakers. I completely understand that was a sound policy back in the day. But like Ren said, you know, it's not 1994 anymore. And I love seeing that there are more diverse people speaking at these conferences. I hate seeing that they have to fundraise to get there. And not everybody can do that. And not everybody has the space to be able to do that, to dedicate that time to, you know, you're telling me my voice is valuable, but I'm out $3,000 to show up and I have to figure that out on my own. I'll just opt out completely. And that's a huge issue. I have a very, very, very small brief plug for myself with my beer judge training course that I did online. I'm donating 25% of the proceeds from that to create the Hecate Fund, and I created it specifically to help defray travel costs for historically excluded people wanting to go to conferences. So that's you know, in the beginning stages of being funded. But again, you know, why are we fundraising for each other when these organizations have the means? They can just realign their priorities and make it possible for people to be there. So I think it's an important question to ask. I'm happy we're having this conversation. I would love to see these same questions posed to these organizations.
Exactly. And I think that's where it becomes so important to actually push back, to keep asking and to keep telling the people who have the money and who are creating these events, these opportunities for those who can afford it, to actually make them aware that they are literally culturally gatekeeping by keeping prices so high and by not providing funds and scholarships and bursaries for underrepresented groups. We are out of time, but I would just like to ask each of you very quickly if you have any short takeaways from this for people to go away and think about, or anything else about Brave Noise that you want to very, very quickly add. Brienne, do you want to go first?
Nope.
Sorry.
Sorry, let me think about that. Sorry. Advice. No. Ren.
Jen?
Anyone? I'm still figuring it out. So yeah, and like, here's the advice. It's a work in progress. We're not perfect. Like Ren and Jen keep saying, no one's going to get it right the first time. I certainly didn't think that what I was doing, posting the stories, was really the correct way that it could have gone. It could have went a lot smoother, better, more organized, and less messy. But, you know, we're all learning. And so just take a chance to like forgive yourself and others and just continue talking to each other.
Awesome. Thank you. Jen?
Yeah, I did just share before I forget, we are doing a Brave Noise happy hour at CBC. So I shared that event link in the chat. So if you're at CBC, we would love to see you and come hang out. Ren and I will both be there, and you know, come hang out. Yeah, I think the takeaway for me is to ask the questions. Like, don't be scared. You know, your favorite brewery isn't going to shout you down in an email because you're asking to see their code of conduct. Or, you know, if they do, then maybe that's not your favorite brewery anymore, right? Like then you have the information and you can move forward with it. But one thing I see that continues to inspire me is how many people just say, hey, you know, I love your beer. This is how many times I've come to your brewery. I don't see a code of conduct. Or are you brewing Brave Noise? And seeing how many breweries respond to that. And, you know, in a perfect world, they would have responded to it anyway without somebody asking. But you know, we give people space to do better when they know better, and that's where the difference is. So if you, like Ren said, if you see something, say something. If you're wondering why your brewery isn't doing something, email them and ask. And chances are, you know, I have only had one like kind of negative response, kind of negative conversation that I would say I would really call it a drop. But, you know, just like, I don't think what you're telling me is giving me the message you think it is, kind of thing. But then I knew, and then I could be like, okay, well, now I know something about this company and I can make my decision whether I give them any more of my money or not. So just ask. You're not going to get shouted down. And if you do, then find another favorite brewery.
Indeed. Absolutely. Very, very sound advice. And Ren, do you want to finish us off?
Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. Remember that making a brave noise doesn't have to be super loud. It has to exist. And those who make the noise around you, uplift them, support them, and we will get through this one day eventually. And in the meantime, we'll just slog through it together.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being part of this panel. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. I hope you've found it as interesting and exciting and encouraging as I have. Stay tuned for the next panel, which is Content Creators, What's Behind the Image. And yeah, thank you so much for being part of the Women's International Beer Summit. Bye,
Thanks
everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.